Could it really be true? Could a 2,000-pound beast with the fury of a hurricane actually be defeated by someone who had lost half their strength? In the dusty arena of Cheyenne frontier days, under the blazing Wyoming sun, spectators watched in stunned silence as a young woman with only one leg climbed onto the back of Thunder's Revenge, the most feared bull in rodeo history. What happened next would shatter every belief about limitation, courage, and the human spirit. But to understand this miraculous moment, we need to go back to where it all began, in the small town of Casper, Wyoming, where legends are born from dust and determination. The morning sun cast long shadows across the weathered wooden fences of the Broken Wheel Ranch, where 23-year-old Sarah McKenzie had grown up surrounded by the thundering hooves and wild hearts of rodeo stock. Her father, Jake McKenzie, had been raising bulls for competition for over 30 years, and their ranch was known throughout the western states for producing some of the most challenging animals in the sport. Sarah had been riding since before she could properly walk. By age 5, she was already sitting confidently on gentle horses, and by 12, she was competing in junior barrel racing competitions across Wyoming and Colorado. Her natural talent was undeniable. She seemed to communicate with animals in a way that amazed even seasoned cowboys. Her balance was perfect, her timing impeccable, and her fearlessness legendary among her peers. "That girl's got more grit than most men twice her size," old-timers would say, watching her practice in the dusty arena behind the family barn. Sarah's dream was simple but ambitious: to become the first woman to compete professionally in bull riding at the highest levels of the sport. But fate had different plans. On a crisp October morning 3 years ago, Sarah was driving her pickup truck down Highway 220, returning from a competition in Laramie where she had won first place in barrel racing. The road was familiar, she had driven it hundreds of times. But as she crested a small hill, a massive elk suddenly bounded into her path. Sarah swerved hard to avoid the animal, her truck sliding on the frost-covered asphalt before rolling 3 times down a steep embankment. When the dust settled and the emergency responders arrived, Sarah was conscious but trapped beneath the twisted metal of her vehicle. Her right leg had been crushed beyond repair. At the hospital in Casper, Dr. Elizabeth Martinez delivered the devastating news that would change Sarah's life forever. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Dr. Martinez said gently, her voice heavy with sympathy. "We did everything we could, but the damage was too extensive. We had to amputate below the knee." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. In an instant, her dreams of rodeo glory seemed to vanish like dust in the wind. For months, she withdrew from everyone and everything she had once loved. The ranch felt different now. The sounds of horses and cattle that had once filled her with joy now seemed to mock her loss. Jake McKenzie watched his daughter's spirit slowly dying, and it broke his heart. Sarah had always been the toughest person he knew, but this challenge seemed too great even for her iron will. She spent her days sitting on the porch, staring out at the arena where she had once practiced with such passion and determination. Then, 18 months after the accident, something extraordinary arrived at the Broken Wheel Ranch that would change everything. A massive cattle truck rumbled down the dirt road, carrying the most notorious bull in professional rodeo, Thunder's Revenge. Thunder's Revenge was a legend in his own right. Standing 6 feet at the shoulder and weighing over 2,000 pounds, he was a Brahma bull with a coal-black hide and eyes that seemed to burn with an inner fire. In his 5-year career, no rider had ever lasted the required 8 seconds on his back. He had thrown 127 professional cowboys, many of them seasoned champions. His bucking pattern was unpredictable, violent, and seemingly calculated to cause maximum chaos. The bull had been retired from competition after his last rider, a 3-time world champion named Clay Morrison, had been thrown so hard that he suffered a concussion and 3 broken ribs. The Professional Bull Riders Association had declared Thunder's Revenge too dangerous for competition, and Jake McKenzie had purchased him to live out his remaining years on the ranch. As the truck backed up to the loading chute, Sarah emerged from the house for the first time in weeks. Something about the commotion had stirred her curiosity. When Thunder's Revenge stepped down from the trailer, Sarah felt a jolt of recognition. Not because she had seen him before, but because she recognized something in his eyes. It was the same look she saw in the mirror every morning, the fury of a champion who had been told his time was over. Over the following weeks, Sarah found herself drawn to Thunder's Revenge's pen like a moth to flame. While her father and the ranch hands gave the massive bull a wide berth, Sarah would sit on the fence rail for hours, watching him with a mixture of fascination and understanding. The bull seemed equally intrigued by her presence, often positioning himself near the fence where she sat. "You're both mad as hell, aren't you?" Sarah whispered one evening, as the sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and reds. Thunder's Revenge lifted his enormous head, his dark eyes meeting hers across the dusty paddock. "They told you your time was over too, didn't they?" The bull snorted softly, a sound that seemed almost like acknowledgement. Sarah had grown up around cattle, but she had never encountered an animal with such obvious intelligence and awareness. There was something almost human in the way Thunder's Revenge carried himself, a pride that hadn't been broken despite his forced retirement. Before we continue with Sarah's incredible journey, I want to ask you to do something that would mean the world to me. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button below. It really helps more people discover these amazing tales of courage and determination. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story like this one. Now, back to Sarah and Thunder's Revenge, because what happened next would change both of their lives forever. One morning, Sarah made a decision that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. She grabbed her old riding helmet from the tack room and made her way to Thunder's Revenge's pen. The bull watched her approach with what seemed like curiosity rather than aggression. "I know what everyone thinks," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. "They think we're both finished. But maybe we're not." She climbed through the fence rails, her prosthetic leg making the movement awkward but not impossible. Thunder's Revenge stood perfectly still, his massive frame tense but not threatening. Sarah approached slowly, her hand extended, speaking in the same gentle tone she had used with horses her entire life. "Easy, big guy," she murmured. "I'm not here to hurt you. I think we understand each other." When her hand finally touched his flank, Thunder's Revenge flinched but didn't move away. His hide was warm and surprisingly soft, his muscles rippling beneath her palm. For several minutes, they stood together in the dusty paddock, a broken woman and a retired bull, both carrying the weight of dreams that others had declared impossible. Jake McKenzie found them there 20 minutes later and nearly had a heart attack. His daughter was standing beside the most dangerous bull in rodeo history, calmly stroking his neck while the animal stood as docile as a family pet. "Sarah, get out of there right now," Jake called, his voice tight with fear. "That bull could kill you without even trying." But Sarah didn't move. "He's not going to hurt me, Dad. Look at him." Indeed, Thunder's Revenge seemed completely at peace with Sarah's presence. His eyes, usually blazing with defiance, were calm and alert. His breathing was steady, his posture relaxed. It was as if he recognized something in Sarah that others couldn't see. "I don't care how calm he looks," Jake said, climbing through the fence himself. "He's put dozens of professional riders in the hospital. You're not even—" He stopped himself, but Sarah finished the sentence. "I'm not even whole?" she asked, her voice sharp with pain. "Is that what you were going to say?" Jake's face crumpled with regret. "That's not what I meant, sweetheart. I know what you meant," Sarah interrupted. "Everyone knows what you meant. But maybe being broken is exactly what I need to understand him." Over the next several weeks, Sarah began spending more time with Thunder's Revenge. She would sit in his pen, talking to him about her dreams, her fears, and her frustrations. The bull seemed to listen, occasionally nuzzling her shoulder or snorting softly in response to her words. Dr. Patricia Williams, a veterinarian who specialized in rodeo stock, stopped by the ranch one afternoon and was amazed by what she witnessed. "I've never seen anything like this," she told Jake as they watched Sarah grooming Thunder's Revenge. "That bull was known for his aggression, but with her, he's completely different." "She's always had a way with animals," Jake replied, though his voice carried a note of concern. "I'm just worried about where this is heading." Dr. Williams nodded thoughtfully. "Animals can sense things we can't. Maybe he recognizes something in her that matches something in him." That evening, as Sarah was preparing to leave Thunder's Revenge's pen, the bull did something that took her breath away. He lowered his massive head and gently pressed his forehead against her chest, a gesture of trust and acceptance that brought tears to her eyes. "I know what you're thinking," Sarah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Everyone thinks we're done, but what if we're not? What if we're just getting started?" 3 months after Thunder's Revenge arrived at the Broken Wheel Ranch, Sarah made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the rodeo community. She was going to attempt what no professional cowboy had ever accomplished. She was going to ride Thunder's Revenge for the full 8 seconds. "Absolutely not," Jake McKenzie said firmly when Sarah told him of her plan. "I won't allow it. That bull has ended careers, Sarah. He could kill you." But Sarah's mind was made up. Dad, I've been dead for 3 years. Ever since the accident, I've been walking around like a ghost. This is my chance to feel alive again. The news spread like wildfire through the tight-knit Wyoming rodeo community. Phone calls poured in from former competitors, family friends, and even strangers, all begging Sarah to reconsider. The local newspaper ran a front-page story with the headline, "Local Woman Plans Suicide Mission on Killer Bull." Dr. Sai Martinez, the surgeon who had performed Sarah's amputation, drove out to the ranch personally to try to dissuade her. "Sarah, I understand your need to prove yourself, but this isn't the way. There are other sports, other challenges that would be more appropriate for someone with your condition." "My condition?" Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. "You mean being an amputee? Or do you mean being a woman who refuses to give up?" Dr. Martinez sighed deeply. "I mean being someone I care about who's about to do something incredibly dangerous for what might be the wrong reasons." But Sarah had already begun her preparation. Working with Tom Bradley, a former professional bull rider who now trained young competitors, Sarah started a rigorous conditioning program. The challenges were immense. Her prosthetic leg made maintaining balance exponentially more difficult, and the standard techniques for staying on a bucking bull had to be completely reimagined. "Traditional riding relies on both legs gripping the bull's sides," Tom explained during one of their training sessions. "You're going to have to develop a completely different approach, using your core strength and your good leg to maintain position." They practiced on mechanical bulls, then on gentle cattle, gradually working up to more challenging animals. Sarah's determination was absolute. She trained for 6 hours a day, building strength and muscles she had never needed to rely on before. Her prosthetic leg was modified with special grips and padding to help her maintain contact with the bull's side. Meanwhile, Thunder's Revenge seemed to sense that something was changing. During Sarah's daily visits to his pen, the bull appeared more alert, more responsive. It was as if he knew that their quiet companionship was building towards something significant. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Williams told Jake during one of her visits. "Most bulls become more aggressive as they sense excitement or tension, but Thunder's Revenge seems to be feeding off Sarah's energy in a positive way." As word of Sarah's plan spread, an unexpected supporter emerged. Clay Morrison, the last professional rider to attempt Thunder's Revenge, called the ranch personally. "I heard what your daughter's planning," Clay told Jake. "Most people think she's crazy, but I wanted to tell you something. That bull didn't just throw me. He broke something inside me. I haven't been able to ride competitively since, but watching the videos of Sarah working with him, there's something different there. Something I've never seen before." Jake's voice was heavy with worry. "Clay, you know better than anyone how dangerous he is." "I do," Clay replied, "but I also know what it feels like to have everyone tell you that you're finished. If she can do this, if she can ride him, it would mean something to a lot of people who've been told they can't." The date was set for the attempt, July 4th, during the annual Cheyenne Frontier Days Rodeo. The event organizers had initially refused to allow the attempt, citing safety concerns, but public pressure and Sarah's unwavering determination eventually convinced them to create a special exhibition. As the date approached, Sarah's training intensified. Her relationship with Thunder's Revenge deepened as well. The bull would now allow her to climb onto his back while he stood calmly in the pen, letting her practice her positioning and balance without the chaos of bucking. "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" Sarah would whisper to him during these practice sessions. "We're going to do this together." The night before the attempt, Sarah couldn't sleep. She walked out to Thunder's Revenge's pen and found the bull standing near the fence, as if he had been waiting for her. She climbed through the rails and sat beside him in the moonlight. "Tomorrow, everyone's going to be watching," she said quietly. "They're going to be waiting for you to throw me, to prove that they were right about both of us. But I know something they don't know." Thunder's Revenge turned his massive head toward her, his dark eyes reflecting the starlight. "I know that you're not just a killer bull, and I'm not just a broken woman. Tomorrow, we're going to show them what we really are." As dawn broke over the Wyoming plains, Sarah felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration that she hadn't experienced since before her accident. In just a few hours, she would either achieve the impossible or die trying. But for the first time in 3 years, she felt truly alive. The morning of July 4th dawned clear and bright over Cheyenne. By noon, Frontier Park was packed with over 30,000 spectators, many of whom had traveled from across the country to witness what the media was calling either the most inspiring moment in rodeo history or a tragic accident waiting to happen. Sarah stood behind the bucking chutes, her hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. She had requested that no cameras be allowed in the staging area, This final preparation needed to be private, just between her and Thunder's revenge. The bull was already in chute number 7, his massive frame barely fitting in the narrow space. Unlike his usual pre-ride agitation, Thunder's revenge stood remarkably calm, his breathing steady and his eyes focused. It was as if he understood the significance of what was about to happen. "You ready for this, girl?" asked Tom Bradley, Sarah's trainer, though his voice carried deep concern despite his supportive words. Sarah nodded, pulling on her riding gloves. "I've been ready for 3 years. I just didn't know it." Jake McKenzie approached his daughter, his face a mixture of pride and terror. "Sarah, it's not too late to call this off. Nobody would think less of you." "Dad," Sarah said, turning to face him with eyes that blazed with determination. "I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this to prove anything to anyone else. I'm doing this to prove something to myself. For 3 years, I've been half a person. Today, I become whole again." The arena announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. "Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments, we will witness an unprecedented event in rodeo history. Sarah McKenzie, riding with a prosthetic leg, will attempt to be the first person ever to successfully ride Thunder's Revenge for 8 seconds. The crowd fell silent as Sarah climbed to the top of the chute. Thunder's Revenge looked up at her, and for a moment their eyes met. In that instant, Sarah saw something that took her breath away. Not the fury of a killer bull, but the soul of a champion who had been waiting for someone who truly understood him. "Easy, big guy," Sarah whispered as she slowly lowered herself onto his back. "We've got this." Her prosthetic leg locked into position against his side, while her good leg found its grip. She wrapped the bull rope around her left hand, testing the tension. Thunder's Revenge stood perfectly still, his muscles coiled but controlled. "Remember," Tom called from beside the chute, "it's not about fighting him, it's about moving with him. You two have been preparing for this moment for months." Sarah nodded, took a deep breath, and looked toward the gate. "I'm ready." The gate swung open, and Thunder's Revenge exploded into the arena with a force that would have unseated most riders within the first second. But Sarah had trained for this moment, had studied every movement, every pattern. As the bull launched into his first massive buck, Sarah moved with him, her body flowing like water over his powerful frame. The crowd erupted as Thunder's Revenge spun to the right, his hooves barely touching the ground. Sarah's prosthetic leg held firm, while her good leg maintained pressure against his side. Her free arm extended for balance as she rode the rhythm of his movements. 2 seconds! The announcer called out, his voice barely audible over the roar of the crowd. Thunder's Revenge switched directions, launching into a series of spinning jumps that had thrown every previous rider. But Sarah had watched him do this exact sequence dozens of times during their training sessions. She leaned into the spin, her body moving in perfect harmony with his. 4 seconds! She's still on! The bull tried his most devastating move. A sudden stop followed by a vertical leap that twisted his body in midair. Sarah felt her prosthetic leg slip slightly, but her core strength, built through months of relentless training, kept her centered. She adjusted her grip on the rope and settled back into position. 6 seconds. This is incredible. For a moment, time seemed to slow. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat, could feel Thunder's Revenge's powerful muscles working beneath her. She realized that he wasn't trying to throw her anymore. He was performing, showing the crowd what they were capable of together. 7 seconds. The final second stretched like an eternity. Thunder's Revenge made one last magnificent leap, his body fully extended in the air. Sarah rode it perfectly, her form textbook despite the missing leg, her balance absolute. The buzzer sounded. 8 seconds! She did it! Sarah McKenzie has successfully ridden Thunder's Revenge! The arena exploded in chaos. 30,000 people rose to their feet, many with tears streaming down their faces. Sarah released the rope and slid off Thunder's Revenge's back, landing smoothly on her feet. The bull turned to face her, and for a moment, they stood together in the center of the arena. Then Thunder's Revenge did something that stunned everyone watching. He lowered his massive head and gently nuzzled Sarah's shoulder, a gesture of respect and acknowledgement that spoke louder than any words. Jake McKenzie vaulted over the arena fence and ran to his daughter, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. Clay Morrison, watching from the stands, later said, "In 30 years of rodeo, I've never seen anything like it. It wasn't just a ride. It was a conversation between two champions who understood each other perfectly." As the crowd continued to cheer, Sarah placed her hand on Thunder's Revenge's forehead. "We did it," she whispered. "We showed them what broken things can do when they refuse to stay broken." The story of Sarah McKenzie and Thunder's revenge became legend that day. But more than that, it became proof that the human spirit, when combined with determination and an unwillingness to accept defeat, can overcome any obstacle. 6 months later, Sarah established a riding program for disabled athletes, using gentle horses to help others discover their own strength. Thunder's Revenge lived out his remaining years peacefully on the Broken Wheel Ranch, where he was visited by thousands of people who came to see the bull, who had helped redefine what was possible. They were both champions in the end, not because they had won, but because they had refused to let anyone else define what they were capable of achieving.